Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Claims Never Sleep. I'm your host, Meghan Henry, and I am so happy you're joining me on this new journey through this new podcast. I think you will enjoy what you hear. And of course, on this, we are talking to people in claims, about the world of claims. We're talking about litigation and defensive claims, and we're talking to attorneys and, you know, everyone in claims adjacent, I should say. But with that, I can't start this podcast without having on Bill Mitchell and Robb Cruser, who, of course, are the founding partners of Cruser Mitchell. And they're just amazing guys, and they have a fabulous story of how they built this law firm to where it is today, and just the general cornerstone of the firm as to our litigation management style and how we approach each case and try to get it to resolution without focusing on the billable hour and really more on the results. And who doesn't love that? So with that, let me bring them in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.
Good morning, Robb and Bill. Welcome to the very first episode of Claims Never Sleep. I am thrilled to have you on this inaugural episode of the inaugural podcast. And I thought it was no better way to get this started than to have you two join me for our first episode. And I really want to get into, where you guys started and how you got to where you are and just your general philosophy on handling cases. And just like, you guys are two great people. So why not to have you on as our first episode? It's a way to start with a bang. So thanks for joining me.
It's good to be with you. I'm Meghan on the inaugural, and good to be with Bill as always.
Hey Meghan, it's an honor to be on the inaugural, and we're excited to have you in the podcast because we strongly believe in trying to make the world better, and this podcast hopefully is doing its part.
We'll see. It's going to make the world better one episode at a time.
Yep.
But I like to start these podcasts and getting to know where my guests started and how they got to where they are. Because as you guys are probably very familiar during your careers, everyone got to where they are with a different path. Most of us didn't start wanting to be lawyers, or most people didn't start wanting to go into claims, but we all ended up where we are in some way. And I personally find that path interesting. If other people don't, sorry, you're just going to have to hear it a lot because I like to hear it. So I'm going to start with you, Robb. Like, did you think, when you were a young lad that, law school and being a lawyer was your path? Was that something you had thought for yourself, or did you fall into it?
Well, I was certainly open to it in the sense of wanting to kind of have my own business. I started actually in accounting and fell into that, and then did that for a year, and then went to law school. So yeah, it was always on the top tier interest level, and then we just had to follow through on the competency. So yeah, it was always there.
So you were one of those people in law school, though, that weren't afraid of the numbers. Because I remember I was a math major, so I wasn't afraid of the numbers. And when I took accounting for lawyers or whatever, most people were deers in headlights in that class. And math, being a math major isn't exactly the same as accounting, but at least I wasn't as scared. So you were probably one of the few.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in the field for a year and had my certificate, so it didn't come up a whole lot in law school, to be honest with you.
So how about you, Bill? How did you end up here?
My dad told me I was going to become a lawyer.
And you listened?
You know what? To be fair, I grew up in. My dad was a blue collar guy who ran a tavern and was a mechanic, and then took bets. He was a mutual clerk at the local horse racing track, and so all of his experience. My dad would have been a great lawyer and a great entrepreneur. He was essentially, but he knew that all the people at the racetrack who had money were doctors and lawyers and even accountants. So, he kind of told us he didn't go to college. My mom didn't go to college. We didn't have any college folks in our family. And he essentially looked at my brother and sister. I'm the middle one, and said my sister was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a lawyer, and my brother was going to be an accountant. So at the end of the day, he was right with my sister, right with me. And my brother did what Robb did. He was an accountant for about a year, got an LLM, and he's a lawyer. So
really,
so there you have it. And so here's I know this will segue into, I think, how Robb and I met.
that was my next question.
Robb and I are the opposites. He's got a lot of hair. I don't have any. He's 6'3". I'm about 5'7.5" on a good day. But Cruser went to some really big, great school outside of Philly. I went to Romeo High School in Michigan, Cow Farm. I then went on to the great agricultural school of Michigan State. Cruser went to the prestigious William and Mary private institution. I then went to Wayne State and had to live at home for 3 years, which I'm lucky I'm alive, or my parents, or I'm not in prison because of conflicts with my dad. And Cruser, ended up at the prestigious Emory University. And so, as I tell all the people, you can have kind of subpar educational experiences, but if you kind of hitch your wagon to the right blue blood guy, you make it.
Well, I won't let facts get in the way of that story, so I'll let it go.
But how did you actually meet?
Well, we actually were 3 doors down. He started 3 days ahead of me at a very good firm, Drew Eckel, and we were both starting there. And Bill was one ahead of me on the letterhead, although I clerked, so I always claimed to have seniority over there. And we just met over the years there. We're together 10 years there. We're in the same class there. We made partner together there. And interestingly, both of our mentors left us. My mentor, Art Glazer, who's a very well-known, renowned mediator, left. And then, Bill's boss, Ted Freeman, left to start his own firm. I think Bill was the only one, Freeman Mathis, many people would know that name. I think Bill was the only one who didn't go with Freeman Mathis. I think that was a strategic mistake on his part because he ended up stuck with me and he had to cobble together a career. But that's how we met and obviously became professional colleagues and great friends.
So, Meghan, I just did the math. I've seen Cruser for the last 33 years, 12,045 days, probably almost every day. 12,045 days, but I'm not counting.
You don't have a ticker in your office.
It doesn't feel like more.
And Ted was a brilliant guy, and he came in my office one day when I was about a fifth year and said, I'm taking my group and 2 other partners, and we're going to take 15 lawyers, I think it was, to a new law firm, and literally 14 went, and I was the only guy that didn't go.
Well, but did you go, Robb, or did you stick with them?
No, I wasn't part of that section. So I was not invited.
Even if he were part, he wouldn't have made the cut.
Yeah. I would have gone and asked, but no one asked.
Associated with you. So when that happened, when you didn't make the cut, Bill, and you weren't one of the chosen ones to go over.
I made the cut. I just didn't go.
Oh, okay.
Come on, Meghan. Gee, oh my gosh.
Well,
I have a bunch of self-deprecating loser stories, I can tell you. That wasn't one of them, though, okay? Let's keep it in that box. It wasn't one of them.
So why did you choose not to go?
Drew Eckel probably had 20 partners at the time, and 20 partners came in and kind of gave a pitch of why I should stay. And trust me, I wasn't a superstar. The pitch was probably more out of competitive to undermine them. And you know how it happens when people are leaving, everyone's trying to grab people. In fact, I keep telling people I should have been fired. My first 2 or 3 years, I was a bad lawyer. I wasn't very good. And luckily I was the captain of the softball and flag football team. And I think that's why they kept me along. But I mean, at the end of the day, I was close to making partner there. I was getting my independence. I had developed my small book of business. And so I just felt more comfortable with the firm that had raised me than going to this new enterprise. So essentially that's the decision I made. And just anecdotally, it was a brilliant decision. I wish I was smart enough and had the right agenda to foresee this, but it was a brilliant agenda because that group did all the civil rights and employment work. And when they left, I was in an 80-person firm and I was the only employment civil rights guy. So guess what? When 20 other partners got a call about an employment or civil rights case, They called me.
Yep.
Never thought of that, but it actually then helped multiply my business.
Yeah, and it's funny how like, but it's like hindsight always makes everything 2020, right? Like at the time, you probably like you don't see that until you're looking back, and that wow, this was a smart decision. That happens the other way too. Sometimes you look, that was a really poor
And
decision.
the second thing that happened is when they left. Ted Freeman was the guru of civil rights. He's an excellent lawyer, smart guy, very debonair, and when he was a guru. So I had a bunch of cases. I was working for him. I was doing 99% of the work. And I, with a defeatist attitude, called each claims examiner and literally said, I know Ted's the guru, but I've been working this case. You mind if I keep it? And their first response is, we don't know Ted Freeman, which shocked me. And they essentially said, we know you and we think you're doing a good job. So we want to keep you. And I'm not saying that was fake it till you make it, but I was candid with them. But it was surprising that it gave me this confidence that, okay, I'm my own man and I can do things my own way. And yeah, there's room for me and Ted out there.
Yeah. Well, you probably were suffering a little bit of imposter syndrome too. Like, well, Ted's the guy. He's way better than me. What am I doing? They got to choose him over me. And meanwhile, like, you knew exactly what you're doing. And
there were some scary moments I guess I was a fifth year lawyer. Would have been about 30 years old. So there was a lot of, walking into new clients and new claims and acting like I'm this tough guy. I know what I'm doing. And Rob and I mean, as we develop business, we would do all our marketing over the phone. Why was that, Rob?
Because you couldn't see how young you were.
Exactly. Seriously, Cruser had the same gray hair then, so he could get away with it. But we don't want. If we went and met clients, they would be like, "Holy crow, you guys are actually kind of young." So we tried to do all marketing over the phone. Thank God there wasn't Zoom back then.
Yeah, we would have never made it in the digital world.
Well, did you have hair then?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did.
Well, I guess having no hair, it might have probably helped a little bit, I guess.
It would have. I should have shaved it 15 years ago, strategically. But if I was a team player, I would have shaved it 15 years ago.
So how did you two come together and say, hey, we should go off and start our own thing?
Well, we were both unmoored, unanchored. His partner left, my partner left. So it basically, I think Bill was the first to kind of bring it up, and it didn't take too long to have me come around. But it came down to this concept of, we were pretty young actually. I think I was 35, Bill was 33. But it came down to kind of wanting to be the captain of our own ship, mm-hmm. and then going from there. I mean, we thought we could grow it. I remember being at those early partnership meetings, and there's like 24 people at the table, and we're down at the end of the table, and you're like, well, it's going to take a long time to get to the middle of the table, let alone the end of the table. So I don't know, Bill, I remember that mantra, captain of our own ship, was resonated back then.
Yeah, it was. And I just think we were on the one hand too dumb to appreciate all the risk and what have you of going out on our own. But on the other hand, we felt like we were entrepreneurial. And I would never have said that when I was 18 or 25 or even 30 that I'm entrepreneurial. In hindsight, we're both pretty entrepreneurial guys, but our attitude is, if we were going to do well, we wanted to do well. And if we weren't going to do well, we shouldn't do well. And so in every compensation meeting for the 2 or 3 years we were partners, there was always it just wasn't it was their firm. They had every right to do it how they wanted to do it. And I love those guys. They made me a good lawyer, I think. But we never understood how we got paid. Mm-hmm. And so every year was kind of disappointing. And frankly, after now I understand the numbers, it should have been really disappointing. Back then I understand the numbers. But I guess so at the end of the day, we just felt like, if we don't do well, we shouldn't have, it's not, we believed in capitalism, not socialism. And some people aren't like that. They rather, if I have a bad year, I want my partnership to scoop me up and help me, which is different philosophy and not a wrong philosophy, but just not our philosophy.
Right. So tell me though, how, when you first started, was it just you two? Did you pull on people from your firm? Like, so go through that process with me, because it's not easy to do. What you did is not easy. And so, and starting your own firm and bringing people on. So what was your process?
It was a humble process. I mean, Bill and I and his brother, we literally took the files by hand, put them in the back of Bill's truck, and we took them that way. Our first was just a sublease space. There was just 6 of us, 4 attorneys, 2 staff. I didn't have an office. I sat in reception. So when the FedEx guy came, I would sign for the FedEx pack. We didn't have a postage machine. For the first 2 weeks, I was taking our paperwork letter down to the post office, buying stamps and dropping them in the letter. So it was humble.
Meghan, we believe in every person in a firm should be at their highest and best use, and we found it for Cruser early on. I mean, he's one of the top. And we've been together 33. He's a top 2 receptionist. He's just that good. The way he interacted with the UPS and FedEx guys, brilliant. I never got anything lost in the mail. He went to the post office and it got in the box.
I deliver. I'm the mailman. Well, what's interesting, we subleased, and it was such a budget-oriented operation. We bought our desks from our sublet tenant, and they charged us $100 a piece. And so we scooped up 4 or 5 desks. I had that desk for 25 years until Mitchell told me I couldn't use it anymore. It was veneer covered. It was actually getting beaten up. But that was kind of our mentality, is, cost structure, keeping it humble. And that's kind of permeated even today. We're pretty tight on expenses.
I mean, Cruser's desk, I mean, he likes to play that part, and he is that guy. But his desk was so bad that if you put tape on it and ripped it off, it would take the veneer off. So I'm glad that I have 10 fingers, because we literally, although we bought a lot of desks internally, we had to move a bunch of desks, and I almost lost my fingers. Like he and I were like at 10 midnight moving desks around. And our secretaries, you have the L-shaped desk. My secretary had 3 changes of opinions the first month, and the Cruser and I are down there, and she didn't want this L, she wanted that L. We moved it. Remember that, Rob? With 3 times, yeah. We fixed my secretary's desk because she didn't like the L shape.
Painful memories.
Yeah.
So, what are some things or some tips that you learned during those beginning years when you're just getting started? And I'm going to follow that up too with I want to hear some mistakes that you made too.
Well, the things that we did right will take about 4 minutes. The mistakes, we'll probably need a second episode.
Well, let's hear about what you did right, and we'll pull out a few mistakes, maybe some key mistakes.
The biggies.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say part of it, whether you're 6 attorneys, which we were, or 106 attorneys that we are now, and we have just under 200 employees. So either way, I would say, talent selection was very key then. We had very good talent. We had the right incentives. Bill alluded to it earlier. Some firms, they have a black box. It's not based on performance. I really always believe that you have to incentivize top performers. Top performers will not subsidize mediocre performers for long, and they certainly won't take instruction from mediocre partners or a group of mediocre partners. So I think one thing we always had from the beginning is we had the right incentive structure in place, that we retain top performers. They want to stay. They don't want to leave. And I think that's always been very key to our success financially. We've never borrowed money to pay ourselves or anything like that. So we've made mistakes in the talent selection. There's very vivid. One of our offices did not work out. We didn't have the right team. No names mentioned, no office mentioned, but we knew. I think Bill and I both knew this person wasn't right.
Our wives knew.
Yeah, and our wives knew too. But they had a good book. They had a good book of business, and we said, well, we'll they'll come into the Cruser Mitchell culture, and we're going to change them. And we didn't change them, and it didn't work. So talent selection was something we learned. That's a mistake, both positive and negative. And that office went away because we just didn't have the right people there.
Well, and I will say though, I mean, you can't change people, right? You kind of have to find people who fit what you're doing. And if you're it's like the square peg round hole. If if you're having someone who doesn't fit in the overall philosophy, you're not going to be able to change them to fit in the philosophy. So it likely is not going to work.
Megan, it sounds so reasonable when you
I
put it
know.
like that. We just didn't get it on a couple people.
It takes a long time to realize you can't rewire people to some degree. We went away, we didn't hire first-year lawyers forever because our clients didn't want to for various reasons. They're not experienced, blah blah blah. They're not efficient and effective. But we did several years where we were going after laterals. Well, some lawyer that's been out there for 6, 8, 12 years, they are who they are, and you can't rewire them if they're. We learned that. So we've been back to we want to train our people to embed them into our philosophy and how we do things in our methodology. Because that's the foundation who we are. If you don't mind, I wanted to comment on what we did right.
Yeah, let's hear it.
The fundamental thing we did right is we chose the right partner. And I'm not going to get mushy, but I chose the right wife. I can honestly, you're going to be shocked, but I'm kind of a irritable guy sometimes. I have never gotten sick of Cruser or my wife in my whole life. I see my wife every day. Everyone I kind of get sick of, and I need my time out. I need to go to my space and be left alone. Cruser and I, Cruser will probably say there's more than that. Cruser and I, what I called awkward moments in 33 years and 23 years. Is our firm 23, Rob? 23?
Yeah, 23. Yeah, 23.
We hit no more than 5 awkward moments, and probably 4 were my fault, and the 5th he was just a stubborn SOB. But so, and I think the bottom line is we never keep score. There's no the competition is actually we had years where Robb did really better than me. Robb wasn't mad that we made equal money. I was mad that he beat me. Mm-hmm. It was this pride thing that I didn't want to be the second guy. I want to be carrying my own weight. And so there was that. And I guess you could say what I learned is we learned whatever was important to the other guy, let him have it. And this is a minor thing, but and Robb probably deserved to be Cruser and Mitchell, but it was important to him, I think, more than me. I wanted a nicer office. So when we were in that bad area, he outmaneuvered me. He was thinking long game. So for 6 months he was at the reception side, the nice corner office, and then we expanded and boom. Now we're at a corner office. So but it's still Cruser Mitchell. So it was brilliant. But seriously, I think and Ray Eckel taught us that too. Ray Eckel of Drew Eckel and Farnham, who was the biggest rainmaker and didn't make what he should have, because he was always trying to work and make everyone else happy. And I think together we've done that, and we've tried to sprinkle that through the whole philosophy of the firm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just call that, as far as compatibility. I think I like a can-do spirit, competence, and compatibility are kind of my 3 watchwords to a growth trajectory for any firm. And the third on the compatibility, my third point is generous spirit. And that's what Bill's described. When you have partners, I remember Barbara Bush's famous statement. Well, what made your marriage work so well with President Bush? He goes, well, we were both willing to go 75% of the way. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying any partner should go 75% of the way, but if you get a partner like Bill, he's always willing to go 60% of the way. And I try to do the same. So if you've got partners who are willing to go 60% of the way, give the other the benefit of the doubt. It's just a lot of the nothing really materializes to fight over. And then we have a little procedure. Bill said if it's really, really important to him, but he didn't mention the second part, and he's willing to do the lifting, have at it. Now, if it's really important to him, but I got to do the work, no. If it's really important to him and he's willing to do the work, of course, I defer to him.
Yeah. And you know what? As Robb said, I'm willing to go 65. And when Rob was willing to go to 35, that's why it works.
Well, I think part of your success though is that you are opposite. So your strengths kind of play off of each other too, and work together versus butting heads on it. At least that's my how I kind of perceive it on my end. And I haven't known you all that long, but that's how I see it.
I don't think we're as opposite as people think. I mean,
Yeah,
we both work 8 to 10 hours a day. We both are, we have the same sort of levels of generous spirit. I think it's a good shtick. I don't know. And I like the shtick, but I think in reality, every time I think of something or he thinks of something, I think, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So
yeah. We don't have, I think I just told you we had 4 or 5 awkward moments in all these years, which means we think alike. There's different stronger strengths. Like, here's a great, here's an example. So, we start Cruser Mitchell. Can I tell your dad's story quickly, Rob, or is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's
Bill,
even go.
He's dead. You won't care. He's dead.
Yeah. Well, you might care. So Rob and I, when we were going to take Rob, Bill, and 2 associates, Robin Webb and Jennifer Macbeth, wonderful ladies who, were with us for a while. And then we took 2 secretaries, Sylvia and I apologize, Rob.
It was Mary Burkhardt.
Mary Burkhardt, yeah. Fantastic. A+ team. But before we started, it never hit me that we don't have cash to pay these people. So Rob went to his dad because he understood that side of the game. He understands operations better than I did. And so we sit down with his dad, who was graciously, this doesn't happen unless Rob's dad is willing to give us a loan. So we make our pitch to him, tell him the firm name, and he looks at us and said, Robbie, Bill, let me be candid with you. You guys really don't have much to offer here. And I agree it should be Cruser Mitchell, but it should be George Cruser in Mitchell.
It's a true story. He with that inauspicious start, he kind of said, well, what am I going to do? I mean, Rob, you got 3 kids and your wife's pregnant. Bill looks like he's got 2 kids. I guess I got to back you guys. But don't be surprised if don't burn any bridges. You might be going back to your old firm. So we were really pumped up after that meeting.
Yeah. So yeah, we both had pregnant wives when we made this decision. And asterisk that because I might talk about that later. But then we're at the firm. This was kind of an awkward moment. We're at the firm, we're working, and Cruser is like, get the billing out. About a week later, we're working. He's like, dude, we have no cash flow. Did you get your bills out? No. He walked in and he saw on a filing cabinet outside my office the stack of papers, and he walks in and he goes, what is this? I goes, that's my billing. I said, and he's like, have you not finalized it for edits to get it out? And I'm like, and like he was livid. I mean, I'm not worrying about getting the bills out.
That is the only argument I can remember in our 23-year history. Is I remember that instant like it was yesterday.
Yeah. I'm waiting for him to apologize for that tone. I mean, he could have been a little more professional.
He did get the bills out. That was good.
Yeah, but also he didn't want his dad to yell at him.
Hey, we paid his dad off, and I think he gave us a 2-year loan. Did we pay him off? And what?
Yeah, we actually had a little bank help too, but within 6 months we were all back to even. I mean, we were such a low expense operation.
And we had a great client who were willing to pay us every 30 days.
Yeah.
Couldn't have done it without them. Yeah,
that's certainly helpful. Wait, so I need to bring it back to the pregnant wives, though. Let's bring it back to that before we forget.
This is
good.
What, Rob?
I
don't want to go. The asterisk there was I have partners who come into my office once in a while who will say, because marketing and networking is so important. They'll just say, I'm just too busy. I'm 45 years old and I have 2 kids and I'm working in a lot. And I'm like, I was 33 and I had, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old and a kid on the way. And Cruser probably had a 6'4" and 2-year-old with one on the way. And, we did it, and when any marketing event, we did. We billed our time. So I think if you have capacity or want to do it, you can get it done. And I didn't articulate it perfectly. Rob, any comments?
No, I call it the midnight hours principle. is I had a buddy in high school, and long story short, he did this big video. He made a movie for our Spanish class. And back in 1981, no one made movies. They were impossible to make. So I say to Mike, how do you make this movie, man? You got school all day, you've got sports after school, and then you got work after the sports. He goes, well, I stayed up till 3 a.m. twice this week and got it done. I thought that was cheating back then. I was like, you mean you're allowed to stay up till 3 a.m? It was just a foreign concept to me. And I think that's what Bill's talking about. Some folks just have a foreign concept. They want to be a marketer. They want to grow. They want to do the steps, but they don't use the midnight hours. Now, of course, you can't stay up till midnight every night, but there's a season, like when Bill and I had to get the book out. There was a season where for like 6 weeks, there was a lot of 10 to 2 a.m. episodes. And if you're not going to willing to do the midnight hours, then don't tell me you're interested in growth, and don't tell me you're interested in control. You're interested in the status quo, and that will not grow.
Yeah, it's funny. I have like it's similar. I have this conversation with my kids a lot. I mean, they're younger, but like they play sports, and I always say to them, going to just to practice and your games isn't enough. Like if you want to stand out, you need to practice at home. You need to do other things. You can't just go to the scheduled practice that your coach has and then show up to the game if you want to put yourself ahead of everybody else. They're not totally getting this concept yet. They have yet to do much practice at home. But I've given
the same advice to my wife. If she wants to be a better cook, she needs to practice more.
Well, sure.
We're working on Bill's motivation behind that advice. We're working on that.
Does she enjoy her cooking?
He's an angel. All she needs to say is, "Hey, Fatso, shut up." But she would never say that to me. But I'm teasing you.
So, what are some key mistakes that you look back and you're like you learned from? I know you learn from every mistake, right? But what are some of the key ones that stand out to you now?
Rob made most of them, so they're probably at top of mind.
He's checking his notes. He's like, I have a whole list.
It's where we begin on this list. This is crazy. As far as mistakes, I can tell you what we certainly have made them. I told you the one story about we knew that one partner, they were not right. But by and large, there's obvious mistakes you can make. Borrow money to pay yourself. Partner with people that are not simpatico with you. We've been able to avoid them largely. I'd say our biggest mistakes were not the biggest mistake we made that we ultimately cured is Bill and I we were going to have this boutique law firm, and we weren't going to grow. And then a client came to us and said, "We like what you're doing. We want you to open up an office in New York." And I said, "What are you talking about? We're not going to go to New York." And Bill's like, "Yeah, we're not New York." But he was persistent. And he finally said to us, "Well, tell you what, to me, to just get him off my back, I said, tell you what we'll do. You give me $500,000 in business and 40 cases, and we'll open up a New York office." And he said, "So if I do this and that, you'll do it." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. Good luck." He goes, "Done." I'm like, "What's done?" He goes, "You just said this. So I'm going to give you those 40 cases and the $500,000. You got 30 days to get it started." And we still resisted. Well, opening other offices was one of our foundational operational successes. I mean, it led to cross-marketing. It led to cross-pollination of knowledge. It led to the national firm. But we were so stupid that we didn't see it. We actually had to have that once-in-a-lifetime experience, which we didn't deserve. How many people say start a new office because we like you guys? It should never have happened. But fortunately, this client persisted through our stupidity, and we didn't have to live with the consequences of a small local firm that never got beyond regional. So that always comes to mind.
You know what, Rob? And it's about, and I talk about it in litigation management. The term might be imagination. Our brain limits many times our opportunity, and it was a concept. We didn't have the imagination to ever think that this little boutique could turn into something bigger. We just didn't. Now today, I have the imagination from, we wrote these books, right? Why is some firm in Norcross being a thought leader on litigation management? because that can happen. That's why we do it, right? But back then, I was adamant. What are you, crazy? We're going to commit malpractice. Well, we're going to, and then so you go from the, Robb's writing a book on these processes, and I think, you want to surround yourself with people that aren't, no people and not absolute yes people, but, hey, you could have been rational about it and say, Bill, you worry about malpractice? Get more malpractice insurance. Hire a really good lawyer that won't commit malpractice. So there were ways to address the issues, which now that's how I think about things when something comes up that's new. Okay, what are the hurdles? Well, how do we mitigate the risk of the hurdle? And sometimes it's like, you know what, we can't mitigate, it's not worth it. And many times is, if we do ABC, we're fine.
Especially if there's a good upside. If there's a good upside, then the hurdles become less. If there's no upside, it's like, why are we even talking about this? But we got to make sure there's not much upside. We wouldn't have thought there was much upside to having other offices. So having that open mind, I'm thinking of all the things we almost didn't do, but we ended up doing it because we listened to other people, the other offices. Well, we weren't going to have other offices. We did. Well, we weren't going to have many in other states. Now we have more lawyers in other states than we do in Georgia. Well, we weren't going to change our secretary to attorney ratio. Well, we did that. We weren't certainly going to do remote work. Well, we've accommodated that. Well, we're not going to get involved in silly podcasts, yet here we are. There are so many different, I could take you down a list of 10 things that we said no to, but at least we've recognized our infallibility and we've gone for things that we thought, okay, that's got a decent upside. And, we've certainly had some failures, but, that's led to me, one of our foundational strengths is the other offices. That's just been such a game changer for the firm.
And that doesn't mean we haven't been cautious. Like I see these firms that just gobble up 8 lawyers, 10 lawyers. But like some firms have grown 5x in 2 or 3 years. It took us a decade. And when that client came to us, I actually think they may have wanted California. They said California, New York, and we did New York. They said do California. It took us a decade or more to find Mark Zimmett in California. We interviewed a lot of people. We just couldn't find the right person. We couldn't find the right partner.
It took 16 years. We brought Mark on in 2016.
Yeah, we did. Texas makes perfect sense for us. Yeah, we can't find. We've come close. We've gotten to the altar actually with somebody, and then said no. So we are very strategic, which shows you, Meghan, what an honor it is that you get to work with us. We're that cautious and that selective that you made the cut.
I know. Whew, for now.
I never gets old, man. Never gets old.
I do feel I'll get a little mushy. I do feel I believe in some sort of kismet in life. And that's how I got connected to Patricia Baxter, who was connected to you, and then she connected me to you. And I feel like a lot of things happen for good reason, and and you have to go with your gut. And I remember after I talked to you, Bill, a few months ago, I called her and I'm like, I think I got to take this leap. It just feels right. Everything about it feels right.
Did you know strategically Cruser was kept out of those initial conversations?
Well, you hit him well.
Exactly. Hey, Bill's the face guy. You got to go with the face guy.
You know what? So Patricia was a partner in Philadelphia, and she had to leave for good reasons because a book of business was leaving for unrelated issues related to Cruser Mitchell. Just changing the guard of the client. And she had to leave. Luckily, we left on wonderful terms. Told her the door was always open to come back. We have communicated with her. How long has it been a decade? So here is what I'm saying. And now Patricia's kind of, and Patricia was the biggest advocate of you coming to us, because good people try to always do the right thing. And when they're hanging out in that pool, they network and multiply.
Yeah. She told me for months, did you contact Bill? Did you contact Bill? Did you contact Bill?
and you know what? Maybe 20 years ago, under the same scenario, I would have gotten a fist fight with, Patricia out the door and said, go to hell. I never want to talk to you again. But again, you learn over life how to handle people and deal with the issue with the situations.
Yes. It goes. I will say, it's very it comes together. I actually put out just a LinkedIn post not that long ago today about finding your people. And it's just like, oh, I can't believe I maybe I was just in the back of my mind. I knew part of this, the theme of this would be finding your people. You found your person in Rob, you found your person in Bill, and then you're finding your people to build up the firm, you know? So I want to jump ahead a little bit though to the disruptive lawyer, because that's a huge part of Cruser Mitchell and the branding and you're just the cornerstone of the beliefs behind the firm. So how did you get there? Like, how did you develop the concept? I mean, I'm sure it happened somewhat organically, but then, you know, you're really utilizing it, and, you know, you wrote books on it. So tell me more about how it came about.
I would say this. Let me take this one, Bill. I give Bill the credit for this. We would never have gotten the Disruptive Lawyers litigation management book out but for his leadership on that. I was too busy to get my head up and off task. And then, of course, the Disruptive Lawyer became the brand that we now, it's both external and internal. We hold ourselves out to people as a firm with the right plan, with the right person running that plan, and the ability to give excellent results in a very speedy fashion so as to disrupt their expectation. And that wouldn't have happened without doing it. And of course, internally now, that's the standard we have to live up to. So if we're not wowing the client, we're not being disruptive, and we're not being true to the brand. So it helps us be disciplined internally. And it's not just a declaration to the clients and marketing device. It's a two-way thing. And I'll tell you what, it's just been, from a client standpoint, all the clients that have come in vis-a-vis, you know, Bill didn't just write the book. He's out there in webinars and speaking to hundreds of people multiple times, you know, every month. So it's been probably the best idea and execution that the firm's ever had, and led to so much growth. And I just give, you know, 95% of that credit to Bill.
Thank you. So Rob deserves more than that. I would run it down to about 93. I think you're being a little smart on yourself. Again, what you learn from other people. We were at a firm, and law firms in 1990 and many up to today make money on the billable hour. So our focus, my first part of my career, was billing. And you want to make partner, you had to bill 2,200 hours a year. And then in 7 years, you might be considered if then you had your own business. So you're working on billing. And if you work on billing, you're incentivized to bill. Mm-hmm. You're incentivized to leave stone unturned, to file motions to compel, to file motions to dismiss, to take as many depositions as you can. Now, I'm not saying with any nefarious intent. What I am saying is I use the term, instead of right plan, right people, mindset, skill set. My mindset, and I think the industry's mindset today, a majority of the industry, a super majority of the industries, doesn't have the right mindset. They're not looking for early resolution. They complicate and make things hard, where we're very strategic in everything we do on every billable hour with the goal of getting out of the case. That doesn't mean settling for paying more or being scared to go to trial. It's strategic that if we spend a client's dollar, it's because that dollar is going to advance the ball to a conclusion that they want and that they define at the beginning of the case. But here's the threshold moment for me. I'm a 6-year lawyer trying to get work, and no one will hire me, and they shouldn't have hired me. I was a young guy just still trying to figure out this craft. And I kept reaching out to this guy named Charles Spencer with the Hartford that a partner had introduced me to, and he had just picked up the DeKalb County Schools book of business. And so I took him to lunch, and I'm sure he looked at me and said, you know, you're a nice guy, but you're like 5th-year lawyer, you know. So one day he calls me, and he says, hey, Bill, you've been nipping at my heels. I have an opportunity for you finally. And I'm like, what? He said, here's the deal. I've been doing DeKalb Schools for a year now, and we have all of these immunity defenses. So it's, you know, we win most of our cases, if not all of our cases. But he said, what's going on is the school district has been using this attorney for a long time. And although that lawyer wins all the cases, they win the cases by billing about 70 or 80 grand every time, filing a motion for summary judgment, and then winning. And Charles said, so we got a new case, and it's a sad case. It's a death case of a kid. And there were 3 or 4 other co-defendants in the case. And he said, I got the budget in the opinion letter. And the opinion letter says, blah, 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 blah. After 10 depositions, we will file an MSJ in 9 months and we'll win. And the budget was $70,000. And Charles said something very simple. You get rid of this case cheaper and quicker, and you're my lawyer. Which is the antithesis of everything I knew. Mm-hmm. And so, bingo, new mindset. Luckily, I didn't appreciate if I had the skill set. I didn't know if I was a master negotiator back then. Not saying I am now, but I, through several letters, 2 meetings, I framed the issue of why we were going to win using, more honey than vinegar, and why you didn't need us on the case, and why the co-defendants were better. The case was complicated with me, not with them, and I was a distraction. And after about 6 to 8 weeks, billing $3,500, I secured a voluntary dismissal without prejudice, mm-hmm. and got out of the case.
Yeah. What client's not going to like that?
Well,
that's the lead story in the book. So there you go.
Yeah,
it's right there. In the
so bingo. Now that's many. If I tell that story to 10 lawyers, 9 would say, "What the hell are you thinking? You lost $67,000 on that case." And my response is, "No, I've gone from 4 lawyers to 115 lawyers with this philosophy." And so I literally realized what a wonderful philosophy. A, I want to do good. B, it adds value and aligns my interests with my client's interests. So I would start practicing and pushing this way and developing results, which I called it the Mitchell metrics back then. But I sent out scorecards in 1997. I'm pretty sure we are the first law firm to actually follow metrics and share metrics with clients. And so I would go to clients and say, hey, you've given me 10 cases this year. You thought the cost of defense was going to be $500,000 and indemnity was going to be, $500,000. And I got rid of them for $200,000 in indemnity or whatever. And so I think I saved you $600,000. Will you give me more work? And, it was very, very effective. Mm-hmm. And so the mindset gets you halfway there, and then the skill set gets you the rest of the way there. And that's what our mantra is. That's what our philosophy is, and that's what we're promoting. And I think it's a no-brainer. Everybody in the industry should be doing it. And we, not only do we do it, we execute on it.
And it's a great way to also train young lawyers, because I remember how I was trained, and it was not that. It was like, these are the steps that you take when you get a new case. And it is literally, you just check the boxes. You go down and you check the boxes. And if you shift it to, okay, you're going to send out these interrogatories. What are you looking to get out of them? And and what do you need to send to get what you need? And are you just sending them to check the next box, or do you have an end goal and purpose, and where is it bringing you? And then I think it helps the young lawyer understand why they're doing any of these steps, and if they need to do this step to get to the end game that you see the case going. Rather than, how I think I learned from the very beginning, it was just like, well, it's the next step on the list. I got to go to it, So it's a good way to learn, because you're understanding the reasoning too behind.
I tell our lawyers, and it's a $5 million. If you're sitting there listening, there's always the exception. There is the $5 million case. There's a return on investment / strategic decision. It's a $5 million case. It's worth spending $20,000 on legal, because the return on investment could be you save $1 million in indemnity. I get it, but we should be, every billable hour should be telling the client that I'm doing this because A, I'm trying to get information to understand the value of the case, or B, I'm doing it to get leverage to drive down indemnity. Those are the 2 reasons you should be doing things most of the time. And if you're thinking in that strategical way, and I'll tell you to connect the box stuff because we do all these metrics. I used to take depositions in 90% of my cases for 15 years. Did MSJs in probably 50, 60% of our cases. My metrics right now show that we take depositions in under 25% of our cases. I call it the deposition bleed because guess what happens whenever you go to a deposition? I sit here with my notepad, and up in the corner I have to-do list, witnesses and documents. You don't just do 1 or 2 depositions. It turns into 4, 6, 8 depositions, and it turns into a request. Every deposition ends with the plaintiff's lawyer saying, hey, I need you to, we need to set up ABC depositions, and I need these 8 categories of documents. So you need to be strategic, and we can get a lot of things done informally.
Mm-hmm.
I call it strategic transparency. If they're going to get it anyways, why do they have to send me a request to produce documents? Share it with them. It will help them evaluate the case, especially if you think it will lower the valuation. Plaintiffs don't want to spend 500 hours, 12 months, and 20 grand on court reporters to find out that their case is worth 100 grand. What are they going to do? If you tell them up front, they can do something about it and dump the case, give a great discount or something, as opposed to now they're stuck.
Right. And honestly, I think plaintiffs' attorneys probably appreciate the methodology more because they don't want to respond to summary judgments. Like they don't want to do all that stuff because they're not getting paid for it.
They just get madder. But that's the thing that in my career, I think I've had a demand. We settled a case more than the original demand, maybe 3 times. And I would argue it's a cardinal sin. It should never happen. And what happens, the case usually only gets worse for the defendant. And we don't have a critical eye enough to appreciate that many times. And or the plaintiff gets madder and madder and madder. So the price of poker goes up and up and up. And it's not a prudent way of practicing.
So have you had, and I think I know what the answer is, but have you had any pushback from some clients that might not appreciate the methodology? There are some clients who do want you to file the summary judgment motion or do want you to push to trial.
The case starts with client, you define the win. If you want me to try the case, then we try it. If you want to pay me 50 grand instead of selling it for 10 grand, we do it. So I have carriers out there that when I talk to them, they'll like, we don't want to have a reputation as being a settler. And I'm like, well, so I've done litigation management presentations to literally 10,000 claims people. And I always do a survey. How many cases have you tried in the last 2 years? Mm-hmm. My survey math, get the high volume auto out of this. Mm-hmm. My math survey is 92% of all cases settle, 7% get resolved by motions to dismiss or summary judgment, and 1% at best go to trial. So I share this information, said you can call yourself whatever you want. The bottom line is you try only 1% of your cases and you settle 92% of the cases. So the question I have for you is, when do you settle it, those 92%? After you pay your counsel 5 grand, 15 grand, 30 grand, after depots, 50 grand MSJ, 100 grand at the courthouse steps. Yeah. It's that simple. And so I get pushback, but then it's sobering news when they realize, and I'll ask them, well, how many cases you guys try a year? And they'll be like, oh, we try 2 or 3 on 5,000 claims. Well, that's your reality. So when are you, as a business person, going to start developing a process, hiring lawyers with the right mindset and skill sets, and training internally to deliver the 92% cheaper and more effectively?
And often too, I mean, I feel like with the trials, it's almost like an older school mentality, that sometimes they want to be able to say, oh, we'll go to trial, we'll push this to trial. And in reality, trial is so expensive and risky. It is risky because if you're going to trial, it's never a slam dunk. So there's just a lot of exposure.
Look, I'm gonna comment, and Robb has a big quote great quote about trial. But bottom line is, if you can get more leverage, you get return on investment. if you believe that by paying me 50 grand to go to trial will lead to a courthouse settlement for 400 grand less than indemnity, bravo, do it. If you want to say, you know what, we want a reputation as a trial company, then put 5 in the trial, put X% in the trial bucket, hire great trial attorneys, and go try those cases. I'm not saying I don't have an opinion on what should be tried and what shouldn't be tried. I just know the statistics show that you're trying 1% of your cases, so you shouldn't be preparing 99% to go to trial. Rob?
Right. Exactly. Well, the old thing we've coined is quietly settle the many and loudly try the few. And that's summarizing what Bill said. Yeah, I mean, pick those cases that we're going to try, and we'll try them, and then let's quickly, right mindset, right skill set, get rid of the rest, and then use metrics to measure whether or not we're accomplishing it. So, I mean, just listening to Bill, you can feel the passion that he has for the book, and that's why the brand, the Disruptive Lawyers, is done. So really, just done marvelous.
And that's why we started doing negotiation. When I realized 92% of all cases settle, then it's negotiation training is so important, right? So that's why we started doing all these seminars. Starting next Wednesday, we have another seminar. 7 series on master negotiation. So we do all these negotiation seminars, and so we give. Here's one thing I want to say. Here's how I get pushback. I give metrics to clients annually. The key is I need to have a good sample size, but I always get the 2 same answers every time. 1, these look really good, but 2, no one else gives us these, so we can't really. It's hard for us to compare. And then the third thing I usually get is a cynical. Can we really trust these? And Rob's better with quotes on this thing, but it hit me the other day. If we have the right mindset and we're tracking this and trying to deliver on this, even if my data is not perfect, the fact that I'm focused on this means I am being more efficient, saving you money. And my horrible metaphor is if I brought flowers home to my wife, she doesn't say, "What's your motivation? Did you go to Walmart and buy these flowers?" She's probably thankful that I'm thinking of her and gave her flowers. And it's I don't want to be impolitic, but anytime we give metrics, I usually get, can we really trust these? Instead of saying, wow, you guys are thinking the right way.
Well, if it's not measured, it's not done. So that's the importance of the metrics. And then, what we tell people is, look, these are our metrics. And obviously you have metrics. Just do an audit. Take 5 of these, audit against your life of the case. We say it was 92 days. You double check it, but you're going to see these all check out. And Bill's right. It's like, look, you want to be thinking about it. We want to be thinking about it. We certainly don't want someone who doesn't think about these issues to be part of the solution because they don't even understand the problem.
Yeah.
Hey, Megan, when I just did a metrics seminar Wednesday, and a lawyer, if I take depositions on 100 cases and 30 cases, and the dinosaur lawyer takes deposition on 60 cases, that's a 30 deposition difference at what, 10? What do you want? How much do depositions cost? 10 grand, 20 grand?
Yeah, I mean,
so right there's a $600,000 difference. Even if that alone is a solid number. Now MSJ, I do MSJs 10% of the time and I win them 90% of the time. If the dinosaur lawyer is doing them 40% of the time and probably winning them about the same 10% of the time, that's another 40 times 30, a $1.2 million difference. I'm at $1.6 million on 100 cases compared to a lawyer with a different mindset.
Yeah. And it goes back to, why are you doing the MSJ, right? Like, is it, you've made a decision from the very beginning of that case, within the first 30 to 60 days, this is an MSJ case. So then every single activity you're doing is to push for that MSJ because you see it from the beginning that this case is worth filing it before X, Y, and Z reason. And it has to do with where you're located, the fact, all the things. But you're not just doing it as another check the box. We're going down the list.
Sometimes you're doing it not to win, but because you might dismiss one fact issue, evidentiary issue that will save you a lot of money at trial. You might want to educate the judge. You might want it to as leverage in a mediation. I'm not saying you always follow them to win, and if you're not going to win, don't follow them. But it's strategic thinking. It's just not check the box. That's how we do it.
Yes. So we are just about out of time, but I didn't want to end without asking both you this. So you, Cruser Mitchell, you're 23 years in. What's next to come?
Well, I wanted to use this platform to announce my retirement.
I accept your retirement.
in 2035. Oh,
okay. Tricked me.
Cruser has a countdown on the lease in his office. I don't know if that's a mind game with me or what. You know, he's stuck because of the lease.
Exactly. No more long-term leases. You know, I think it's all systems go. You know, Meghan, it's we got the right culture, we got the right people in place. We typically don't have the 7-year plan or the 5-year plan. What we do is just we are open to opportunities that present. You presented to us within the last, we didn't have a strategic plan to have Pennsylvania. You presented us and we jumped on the opportunity because we think you're an outstanding person. And those, the bigger you get, the more these opportunities somehow find them. You know, Bill does a webinar for 1,000 people and you've got these opportunities of, 100 people come forward and 50 of those are second calls and 25 of those are face-to-faces. And all of a sudden we have a new client or new opportunity. So it's just being open enough to chase those and being active enough. He's doing his webinars. We're both 40-hour, 50-hour week guys still. So, I still think it's all systems are go for the foreseeable future.
I think as we will strategically expand when it's right. I think we're getting more into, I'm doing more national council, negotiations, mediations, etc. And we're slowly starting to do some litigation management consulting where, carriers or big, companies bring us in to fix their processes and retrain their people on flat fees. And that we've been doing a little more of that. And it's actually fun and challenging where you can change a whole organization in a matter of 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a call at 2:30 today with a carrier who's seen this material and wants to they quote want to introduce themselves to us. I'm like, oh, happy to be introduced to you. Talk to you too. So,
very different from years ago when you were taking the mail at the front desk.
I could tell you a few more stories.
Times have changed.
And Rob, I do have a very important mailing that needs to go out. So as soon as you're done, just waltz down here and get it out.
I get that right done. Yes, sir. I'll bring it up with your coffee as usual.
Yeah.
You know how he likes it. Well, guys, I thank you so much for coming on. I think we could have probably spent another 2 hours just going all into this, but I need to respect everyone's time and we got to keep it to an hour so everyone stays on and listens to the end. But thank you so much for being part of the first episode of Claims Never Sleep. You guys were very much a part of us coming up with the title for this podcast and launching it. So I can't thank you enough for giving me this platform and helping me continue this platform and then being the first guest on this.
Well, thank you. I thought I was a little shocked that it became Claims Never Speak. I thought it was Bill Mitchell on the law with his friend. So I'm I mean, you probably saw my shock at the beginning, but I rolled through it. So, hey, Meghan, thank you. You are exceptional. And that's why literally in a 24-hour whirlwind, we recruited you heavily to come aboard because you're extraordinary as a lawyer and you're extraordinary as a person. And this podcast is next level. And we're proud of you and we're proud that you're on board.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
So for all our new listeners, old and new listeners out there, of course, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to Claims Never Sleep on your favorite streaming platform. And you can also find us on YouTube.